Hi, everyone. Good evening and welcome to LIMA Online, our special week of events that we organize in collaboration with Jaap Sambooks. Because we're here on the occasion of the release of the book, A Critical History of Media Art in the Netherlands, with the subtitle Platforms, Policies, Technologies, which is edited by Marga van Mechelen and myself. And to celebrate this, we have invited four important institutes of media art in the Netherlands to present themselves, their history, their artists, their work, to you, each in a separate program. Yesterday, I had Dick Rijke, Fedde den Berg, and Rebecca Wilson with me to talk about the history of Stein. And today, I'm here with Gabi Weijers, the director of LIMA. Hi, Gabi.
Hi there.
And welcome and thanks for joining me. Tonight we're going to talk of LIMA, but we're not only going to talk of LIMA, we're going to talk about all the institutes that were there before LIMA and that we carry the heritage of, so to say, which is Montevideo and the Netherlands Media Art Institute. So we have quite some things to do tonight.
Yeah, it's really fun and pleasure to figure out how to take you on a tour to Lima. And thank you, Sanneke, Marga, and Eleonor for organizing this. It's always really a nice opportunity to give an insight in the collection and in our archive and to show the artists and exhibitions and projects and works from the past and also the present. And let's try to make a mix of both of them.
Yeah, I think that's really something if we look at like all the institutes that now are sort of taking shape in Lima, is that like the past and the present are always in dialogue. We can't see the one without the other, and even the contemporary artists we work with, they often like relate themselves to work in the collection from the 60s and 70s. So that might be the recurring thread. But we're still going to start somewhat at the start, probably. So maybe we start at Montevideo and when it was founded and how it was founded.
I selected this guide to take you to the history and show you how we connect the archive and the collection with newer generations and our work at Lima. Lima is a media art platform, and we are an agency, but also have a digital repository and executing a lot of research into digital preservation, and of course reflect on media art, digital art, and present it. And in that perspective, we are not that different from the previous institutions. We are a young institution, but our history goes back to the 70s. We were one of these institutions in the line of Montevideo Time-Based Arts, Netherlands Media Art Institute, and NIMC. And the first one was founded in 78. That's Montevideo, founded by René Coelho in Amsterdam as a foundation and a gallery and a center for electronic media. And preparing this talk, or this lecture, this tour, this documentary, you could give it all kinds of names. I found a promotion text of Montevideo that I wanted to share with you, and it's from '84. So, the Montevideo Art Foundation, Center for the Electronic Media in Holland, is providing resources since 1978, enabling the production and post-production, promotion, distribution, and exhibition of artists and artworks, including videotape, computer art, and video installations.
That's interesting.
Yes.
And we mostly find that interesting because of the mention of computer art. Because often when people talk of Montevideo, it's like a foundation or an institute for video art, but there was already computer art from the very start.
It was a very technical institution, one could say. with a lot of technical experience, and also production of many works, video works, computer-based works, lots of installations, and inviting from the start artists like the Bazookas and others to join and to give workshops and present the works. But also in the 80s, Gary Hill and Bill Viola and artists, many artists from abroad were presented in the Netherlands by Montevideo, and many media artworks in the Netherlands were produced and presented by Montevideo. In the late 90s, it was called more and more Netherlands Media Art Institute. In the early 90s, there was a fusion with time-based arts. And since 98, it was run by Heino Holtappels. And he consolidated this supporting institutions, enlarged it with artists in residencies, like more education and other facilities. And it had an enormous reach out. So you can also read in the book that these grassroots institutions with their production, presentation, and other services had a huge impact. And for Montevideo and NIMC, one of the key figures or the key core was also the sharing of equipment and technical consultation. It had to stop in 2012, or let's say 1st of January 2013, and then LIMA continued the legacy. And since 78, there was a huge collection selected, works from all over the world with unknown talents, very known talents, and still works are being added. And you could say there are many lines in this collection. We sometimes talk about medium-specific works, or media critique, or performance, or new narratives. There's always many different approaches that how you can touch such a collection, or how you can find a route. I selected many works with technical experiments. I like the energy, I like the performativity, I like the experiment. So I selected, I think 25 minutes of works from the collection and our archives. And I think it would be nice to start and time to show these works.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so video 2 through, do 95.
95?
Yeah, it's connected. Yeah.
19,
Yes, I did it?
and this is what it is?
Yeah,
And that's what came through?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can you live with it?
Oh, I don't know. Do you
No,
have
there's
to
no
erase?
second video inputs. No.
No, but it was on the back, see? No, here's on. Invert stencil.
Is this an autograph or what? Auto ketchup?
That is.
Yeah, there's a, but it's controllable by rate 1 or rate 2.
And this is the same.
Do you think you're ready for this device anyway? Do you really like this device?
I don't know. For me, it seems very, very artificial. Very much. Like you're not playing with the machine is playing with you in the way that. No, you. I don't think that you don't have really control.
No, but don't you
Like
think...
she's fooling you.
She? It's she? Machine? She?
She is a she.
Oh.
Isn't it?
No. I think it's it.
No, it's a she.
Yeah, I would never assign a sex to a machine. We came to video maybe from a desperation. We don't know.
Right.
So because all so after you come to this, all you're looking for is how to, in a way, express or how to still save your life. And video was there to save our lives. What we talk about is a new language, but for me, technical language is a poetic source, as description of civilization was for the futurists, so to speak.
My life, it is a stupid oscillator. But, you know, to this generation, that means very little. So I cannot judge them. They have to build their own ethical system.
For me, it's if you make art, if you want to make art, if you want to work with such a high technician, it's necessary to risk all, to risk your own person, and to risk your brain, to risk the work.
I think the workshop kind of waked us up, huh?
Hebben we verbinding? Bent u er allemaal? Het is eigenlijk een beetje zoals met die KLM-gezagvoerder die de passagiers als volgt toespreekt. Dames en heren, hier spreekt uw gezagvoerder. Hartelijk welkom aan boord. Als u door het linker venster kijkt, ziet u Nederland in de verte verdwijnen. En als u nu naar rechts kijkt, dan ziet u aan de vleugel, aan de rechtervleugel, 2 motoren. Die staan allebei in brand. En als u nu naar beneden kijkt, ziet u in de diepte een klein geel rubberbootje. En daarin zit uw captain met zijn favoriete stewardess. Zij wensen u beiden behouden aankomst. Zoals u ziet ben ik op zakenreis en maak ik u per zakterminal deelgenoot van mijn kommervolle omstandigheden die mij dwingen om u vanaf het internationale kunststrand toe te spreken. Zou dit nu zo'n live verbinding zijn waardoor ik u via internet hartelijk welkom kan heten bij de 5e van de serie presentaties bij Montevideo? Het onderwerp is ditmaal internet. Een topic waarover u ieder uur door de media wordt bijgepraat. Euforie en sepsis wisselen elkaar af. Veel slimmers proberen een graantje mee te pikken van de hype door cursussen te organiseren of door zich als webdesigner uit te geven. Het is wellicht een beetje te vroeg om het gedoe diepgaand te analyseren. Daarvoor is alles nog te veel in het stenen tijdperk. Maar we dachten dat het geen kwaad kon om even af te remmen en na te denken over wat er nu eigenlijk aan het gebeuren is. Is er wel sprake van zich vernieuwende sociale verhoudingen? Komen de mensen eigenlijk door het internet wel achter hun televisie vandaan? En verandert het sociaal autisme nu eindelijk in de global village? Wat is er mogelijk? Wat wordt er mogelijk? En wat zal niet mogelijk worden? Deze maand gaan we dergelijke vragen proberen te laten beantwoorden door 4 specialisten. De laatste avond, op 23 april, laat beeldend kunstenaar Jouke Klerenbezem ons zijn visie horen. De visie van een beeldend kunstenaar. Daarvoor op 16 april maken we kennis met een nieuw artistiek concept. Leo Bassi's Internet Circus. Dat zijn première gaat beleven in het Utrechtse festival aan de Werf. In mei aanstaande. Volgende week dinsdag wordt de rage hopelijk wat gerelativeerd door Francisco van Jolen. Nederlands eerste journalist op en over internet. Maar vanavond wordt het spits afgebeten door de man die wellicht de belangrijkste katalysator van internet in Nederland is. De chef van Access for All, Rob Grondgrijp. Hopelijk zie ik u de volgende week in levende lijven.
Yes, welcome back. And thank you, Jaime, for sharing this material with us. We saw works by Livinus van der Bunt, Bill Spinover, Nan Hoover, Trevor Batten. And we saw already quite a broad scope of what, like in this specific case, video art can be. We saw interactive installations. We saw playing with the electronic signal. We saw a reflection on light, which is also very important, drawing with light almost. We also saw the fazookas that you talked of. But we ended in a newer period, so to say, with a reflection on the internet, which was in Dutch. So maybe you can give a very short summary of what we have seen over there.
Yeah, it's an announcement for a program at Montevideo on the internet, where René invites people. René Coelho obviously is seen in this tour and telling the content and inviting people to come over. And it's a program with artists reflecting on the internet, but also with Rob Grondgrijp, very deep involved with Access for All. So, and it's from 96, I think. So it's also from a different period, where the rest of the clips, of course, started in the 70s. and Bazookas in the 80s, and Bill Spinhofer in the early 90s.
Yeah, yeah. We already saw now a shift from video technology to digital technology, which, for instance, for artists like the Bazookas, like marked a sort of major, like almost paradigm shift in their body of work. But still, they also completely coincide. I think it's also a logic continuation within the field of media art, and within the field of Montevideo and NIMC, that these two are there.
Yeah, and what I like very much is you can so clearly see the relation between, let's say, sound and vision, communication, the body as transmitter, or the interactivity, and the, what shall I say, the urge or the fascination for the technology and the experiments, and to find a new artistic expression, and also to reach a new audience. Yeah, and I would also say the performativity of the work.
Yeah, yeah, and the performativity that the machine enables. I'm saying machine now because there was this fantastic quote in the workshop, which was like, "You're not playing with the machine is playing with you." And I think that says a lot about the spirit of that time, but also of the relationship with many media artists with their medium, this constant dialogue with their materiality, perhaps in a very bodily way. That's also, of course, what we see with Nan Hoover, when she is like also physically represented sometimes in a work, but it goes on various levels. I think the Bazookas, even if they make complete abstract work, it has a relationship with their body, with their environment, and what the machine does in that.
Yeah, and it's often about translation as well. And of course, this is also why I selected them, because I also see what LIMA does often as translation of these works to a newer generation. Or if you talk about archiving or preservation, you also could see that as translation. So I think this is very key and gives meaning to these works.
Yeah, no, that's interesting that you say that, because it works on various levels, on the artistic level, but also indeed on preservation level, but also in relationship to your audience, because I think what LIMA also does is make people aware of the importance of technology in a certain time, but show what it could mean nowadays. Can you elaborate a bit on that, like how you see that at LIMA?
Could mean nowadays, I don't know, but it's like it's very interesting to see how these particular artists, but also the artists we're working with now, are exploring the technologies or the machines or the transmitters to visualize or to materialize or to conceptualize an idea or a concept, and using this technology to innovate, or using innovative technologies, but maybe not only the technologies, also the practices. So it's more than only art and technology. It's also, in my perspective, more than art, technology, and science. It's looking for the boundaries, or stretching the borders, and figuring out, and that's what I would call innovation, how to work with these new possibilities, and how to get to a next step in the development of media art. And you see always that when a new medium comes around, that it first imitates, one could say, and that it develops further. And this is a continuous circle. But of course, also the technology is changing all the time, and the possibilities in society, and also what I always forget is in the 70s and in the 80s, it was rare. technology was very expensive. This video and computer technology at the time was huge, heavy, very expensive, and hardly anyone had access to it. And of course, that's something that's totally changed over time. And now many things are prefab, where at that time it was more like do it yourself. So of course, more things are community based, maybe, than it was at that time. I don't think so, but you could argue for both sides. Yeah, I like this continuous flux.
Yeah, and we talked about like technology, and we called it a bit the machine. But of course, when we think of technology in media art, it also relates to entire apparatus that also exist outside of technology or nor art, which is communication systems. We talked already of a video, which relates, of course, to television, and we talked about the internet, which is a mass communication channel that also has not only an influence on art but also on society. And I think you mentioned it already quickly. There comes a media critique also in there. So, and I think that's also something we're gonna slowly look into in the new section of works, that is not only playing with this technique but also playing with the role of this technique in society and arts. Which is also an interesting new threat that comes with the field of media art, so to say.
Yeah. For the next block, so to speak, I selected works from the Netherlands Media Art Institute time, so to speak, but also with the same theme, technical experiments, workshops, some streaming experiments, and more. So maybe we go there and show these works.
We have 3 performances coming for you. The first one is developed by Dimitri and Evelina. They're both over there. They're very nice. What you see is solar levitation, and I have to stress that it's not being caused by magnetics, but only through the sound that you will hear. So the defiance of the gravity is being brought forth by sound instead of magnetics. Enjoy.
Civic system we can always change the process. It's a political open source, people, companies writing together software for sharing. Everybody can use our network to screen it.
With broadcasting, you have public channels in a lot of countries, and these are being made by the government. So essentially they say, yes, the public should have content, you should have a voice, blah, blah, blah.
And the letter goes on. I would think it was fair to assume that this is a word processor, but of course it could be something far more confidential. Though the picture is just readable, it's hardly perfect. But more money and more determination would soon improve that. So, is there any way to stop this? Well, yes there is. You can cover your terminal and your screen with a metal screen. And it'll also cover the front here with glass, perhaps with a mesh inside it. If you do that, you'll do some good by absorbing the signals and conducting them down to Earth.
Depending on what I'm doing at the time, I do a lot of different things.
You came here to Europe, to Berlin for the Chaos Communication Congress. Did you enjoy the Congress?
Yeah, it's always worth it to go places. You meet a lot of interesting people, you get the latest information. There was a lot of excellent stuff in the program, like information warfare or information operations, whatever they prefer to call it, and Echelon, which is a part of Project 415.
Well, that sounds as if you were mostly interested in the political aspects of information technology.
Every aspect of information technology is political, and it's definitely true that I'm very much concerned with the idea of electronic resistance on the net and political activism. I mean, hackers are the spearhead of this new form of resistance, and they have enormous political potential, although most of them aren't aware of it.
When opening an originality report, you will first view the report in cumulative mode. This mode shows you all the highest matches. The overall similarity index indicates the percentage of visual material where similar visuals were found in other sources.
Can you tell me something about the history of the word hacking?
I actually like the way you asked that question. Most people ask, are you a hacker? And I don't think of myself as a hacker per se, because to me, hacking is a pursuit, it's an activity, it's a verb. It is anyone who is intensely involved in the thing they're doing to an extreme amount. If you can hack the theater, right? If you get up in the morning and you go straight to the theater and you start painting sets and rewiring the lights and stuff like that, you're hacking theater. And most people don't. Most people will just do their job, stuff like that. A hacker is someone who's well beyond that, someone who's seriously involved.
As Korean founder and leader of the Worldwide Unification Church, claims to be the Messiah and the second coming of Christ, fulfilling Jesus' unfinished mission, served time in prison on tax charges, allegedly conducted sex rituals among married female disciples.
This is a new media department where we see the changing in art.
Funny, but it's true what loneliness can do.
There is a huge need and a huge opportunity to get everyone in the world connected, to give everyone a voice, and to help transform society for the future.
Are you listening? Are you listening? Shut the fuck up! We don't want to destroy television. We want to add to it. We want to stretch it until it starts to lose shape.
Today our society has reached another tipping point. I live at the moment when the majority of people in the world have access to the internet or mobile phones, the raw tools necessary to start sharing what I'm thinking, feeling and doing with whomever I want.
Talking back to the media, woppa, oh yeah. Talking back to the media, woppa, oh yeah.
It takes two to make a thing go right. With famous books, the first time is already the second, since we approach them already knowing them. We are always somehow rereading a classic because we have encountered some previous incarnation of it, a refraction, in other stories, texts or versions.
Spread the news, I'm on my way, woppa, oh yeah, yeah. All my blues have blown away, woppa, oh yeah, yeah. I'm bringing you love so true, 'cause that's what I owe to you. Walking back to happiness I shared with you.
Okay, welcome back. And thank you again, Gabi. We saw quite a diverse range of projects. We saw very critical work. We saw again this technological experiment, but it was now more in regard to societal or media critique issues. We saw some hacking. We saw Heath Bunting, one of the net art pioneers. We saw the last exhibition of Heiner Holtappels, director of NIMC at that time, with projects by Marnix de Nijs and Kirsten Geisler, Sonia Chilari, who are all also part of the book and important figures again, this in technological the experiment history of media art in the Netherlands. And it ended with a short clip of artists talking back to the media, a project that was a continuation or a reflection on a manifestation that happened in 1985, which was really a media critical event initiated by Raoul Marroquin and David Garcia. And at that time, cable television was newly introduced in Amsterdam, and they wanted to react to it because for the first time they thought they could also talk back to the monopoly that television was until that day. Much changed since then, the arrival of the internet, a continuously changing relationship to mass media. And we thought it was interesting to see what the manifestation was at that time and what it can mean in contemporary times. In this regard, we collaborated with contemporary artists and see how they relate to these issues. And one of the artists that was part of this research exhibition series and so on was Douwe Dijkstra. And I have Douwe Dijkstra here with me. So hi, Douwe, welcome. And thanks for joining.
Good evening.
Hi, yeah, great that you're here. It's already a while ago that we did the Artists Talking Back to the Media project. I think it was 2015 that we started, and 16 that we held a series of exhibitions here in Amsterdam and also in Colombia, where Raúl Marroquín is from. I still have good memories of that exhibition. I hope you have.
Yeah, it was a very, very special trip. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, can you tell a bit about what this manifestation means to you and how you see yourself operating in this line of reflection, and what are the similarities or differences, and how this is part of your practice?
Yeah. Well, first, I mean, it was a very, very strange sensation to be part of this exhibition, because also it's a big part of it is a retrospective to a movement that was or a moment that happened when I was 1 year old. So there was I don't know. It felt a little bit like time traveling to be with my work in between all these pieces that were from a very different time, but obviously they related very strongly. And I participated with a work called Démontable, which is about the relationship that I experienced, the weird artificial relationship that I experienced with war through media. And actually, I was also looking at these excerpts now, that my work also really fitted because I used a lot of TVs, because for me they are in the images that I created, they're still the ultimate symbol of mass media, even though maybe internet is way more invasive in our lives right now. But I always use I tend to use the TV as a symbol a lot, and many of my works are about the role that media play in my personal life.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's also for this reason that you have such a click with the work of Raúl Marroquín, who is one of the not founders but important artists who deals with low tech. So also intentionally using not the hyper modern technology, but using the DIY tactics to state your sometimes problematic relationship to these technologies, or to criticize it in also always a bit of playful way. I think that's also what you definitely have in common, and was very much part of the 85 manifestation. Even nowadays, some of the artists say, like, were we too playful? I don't know. Like, it's is that also a question that plays in your practice, that you feel like, can I criticize something so heavy in a light and almost funny way?
Yeah, well, I think you can, and for me it really works because it's a very important how to say, like a very important trigger in my practice, the playing, and also having fun doing it, and also discovering visual ideas through actual playing. And also I think humor, I mean, the best compliment I got for this piece Démontable is that people had the feeling that they wanted to laugh, but that they felt a bit uncomfortable laughing. So that they had this mixed feeling of it's absurd, and it is an absurdity can be very funny, but at the same time you realize, it is about something very real that I'm also part of, which is also maybe I don't know, sad or problematic is maybe a better word. And this mixture of this mixed feeling is exactly what I often experience when consuming mass media, is that it's a hilarious cocktail, but at the same time it shows you some problematic sides of the world, let's say. Yeah.
And maybe that's the only way to really engage people, to not only point finger or scare, but also take them with you on this journey that is not so one-sided.
Yeah.
And does it mean you're still, because Demontable already has some years, I think it was one of the biggest hits from our distribution collection of LIMA. It was distributed worldwide over hundreds of times. But in your current practice, is this kind of tactic still relevant? What are you working on currently? What are you doing?
Yes, it definitely is. I'm moving a little bit in my work towards documentary, although manipulation of image and special effects and let's say are a big part of that, and I'm trying to find a way to combine these my visual way of working with video and documentary topics. To always what I try to do is to make a film that is also that tells a story, but is also about the way the story is constructed. And right now I'm working on a documentary about actually my neighbor in my studio. I have a studio and I have a neighbor there, and he has a very interesting life story that he wants to reenact with me. So this will be a film about his story, but also about me getting to know him through reenacting. There's always this making of or meta aspect to it, and so I think it's that's very much in line with what I was doing in Demontable. And there was a small video that I made earlier this year that I wanted to show here because it fits artists talking back to the media perfectly. And it's a little announcement trailer that I made for the Illustration Biennale in Haarlem. Of course, one of the many canceled events this year. They're gonna do it next year. And I made a little video that is almost, it feels more like a work that just fits my other works. It's not so much a commissioned piece, although it is, but it really fits my other work, and it is about TV and a little intervention to the TV. And I believe you have it ready, so maybe we can have a look.
New.
The perspective is not going to be perfect.
Has it all.
I'm just very frustrated because I feel like
This is not a time for pessimism.
Nou, het betekent zeker dat er zorgen zijn.
I want to just eat cookies and cry.
Cool.
Yes.
Now, yeah, thanks for sharing. And I see indeed that the television is going strong in your work.
Yeah, and especially channel surfing, which was also actually the motive of my graduation film that I made in 2005, because it still for me embodies the way we consume media. And it's the same if you scroll down a Facebook feed or something, and just have this mix of realities. And I was drawing over the TV here, and something funny, or well, it's not so funny actually, but when I was making this video, it was February, I think, early February, and I was checking the news, like what elements to put in, and I really wanted it to be about the planet and well, the problems with human action on the planet. And but of course COVID was already starting, and it was in China, and it was talked about in the news a lot, although it had not, or actually exactly at that time it arrived in Europe, although we didn't know at the time. And I thought, well, maybe I should make a little reference to this COVID virus. And I actually I recorded the shot that I can quickly show to you now by sharing my my screen here. Here. Now I see myself. That is funny. On the YouTube. So so here is the little clip. It's I posted it later in March on my Instagram, and it is the shot of the news reporter who is saying in Dutch that there really is that there really are a lot of concerns.
Nou, het betekent zeker dat er zorgen zijn. Nou, het betekent zeker dat er zorgen zijn, maar die zorgen zijn dan wel. Nou, het betekent zeker dat er zorgen.
And I decided to record something else, and I made the shot with the rising sea, because I thought, well, this virus that will be out of the news in 1 month maybe, and then this festival is in 4 months, but the rising sea will be a problem still, for sure. Well, anyway,
things did change since then.
Things changed a lot. I mean, I don't regret this decision, but it was just so weird how we thought about it, how relaxed everyone, well, at least a lot of people were at the time. Yeah.
And are you like highly influenced by it nowadays? Can you still continue your practice? Because of course we're worried about.
Yeah, I mean, I am lucky because I'm in preparation for this documentary that I mentioned, and also for another project that is in theaters, but it's in development at the moment. So and these projects were just things I can do at home and in my studio, but it's really an illusion that you can just continue and be, I don't know, productive or work the same as you used to. Everything seems to go slower, but I'm lucky that they're not. It's not that all the work is disappearing. So, but a lot of people I know who work in music and arts, and especially performing arts, their life has just been put on hold for 2.5 months.
Yeah, it's insane. And indeed, I think in media art we might not be affected as hard as in performing arts.
Yeah.
But it's a strange period, and so it is for LIMA. I'm also talking to LIMA's director, and I haven't seen her for so many weeks, when normally we used to work in the office together. So yeah, Gabia, we came already to the LIMA chapter by now. So
yeah, and I think the project with artists talking back to the media, and including Douwe also in this talk, also gives a good overview in how we revisit projects, but also how we incorporate it with emerging artists and new practices, and then also open it up to a larger audience, exhibiting it in the Netherlands, but also abroad, and also in cooperation with the other institutions. As Artists Talking Back to the Media was originally an event where many institutions were involved. Mm-hmm. So also the 2016 version was as well. And maybe it's good to, when we have this last part of our tour today, talk a little bit about preservation. Revisiting Artists Talking Back to the Media from the mid-80s was only possible by digging into the archives of some institutions, getting the stuff out there and experiencing it, also doing interviews but actually also writing history. There was not that much written about it yet. And together with the Apple, it was researched, and that after a while became a whole, I think we did workshops, we involved academies, universities, different countries to show the work that was been done, and also how that line of, let's call it media critique, how artists work with that in the current times. That's one way of translating the past in a way that could be available and accessible for a new audience. Of course, preservation is often centered around technique, or like updating technique, or storing tapes and material and migrating it and emulating it. Montevideo already started early 90s with national projects on the preservation of tapes, videotapes from the most important collections in the Netherlands. These were collaborative projects always. And at LIMA, we do the same. We do these tape projects, we do installations, but we also research a lot of net art pieces, researching how we can take that into the future, documenting, looking at the archives, doing arts interviews, storing the source, but also revisiting them and see how we can use this documentation to re-execute the work, or maybe even to make a new interpretation of the work. Because you could, this is also something, LIMA has a long line already in acquiring works and doing research into reinterpretation as a preservation strategy. You could also see as artistic preservation strategy. We invite artists to revisit the work and re-execute it. And I think that's a wonderful way in getting familiar with the work. Actually, it's a sort of doing the work yourself. So this maybe hacking approach. But also this is very much depending on the artist that's doing the reinterpretation, because sometimes it's very secure in the sense that very, very, very much alike the original, so to speak, and sometimes it's really a free version. And I think that brings us also further from the object and yeah, in preservation, it's often the feeling that things are frozen, and there is no idea how to experience that in the future. But actually, preservation is a very vivid and active activity, and where you should be involved and retranslate these works. So yeah, rethinking the paradigms of reinterpretation, but also looking at other disciplines. In theater and in music, of course, reinterpretation is common preservation practice. Re-executing an Hamlet is seldom the one that was done 100 years ago. It's always a new artistic impression. I'm not sure, but if I talk, but I think we are not only called a platform, we really are a platform. Often artists come to us with particular projects to join, but also we do a lot in cooperation. So also this reinterpretation project. The last one we did was in January, where we invited the Rietveld Academy to work on reinterpretations. We had an exhibition together with the Appel. We invited some artists to come over and do the reinterpretations. We had a panel discussion and more. That was the one based on the work by Dan Graham. We could chat a bit more on reinterpretation or preservation if you like, Sanneke, but we could also show a short fragment of the reinterpretation.
I think it can be nice after you already gave quite a severe overview of what like reinterpretation can be. And yeah, I think it's good to mention that this work by Dan Graham, Audience Performer Mirror, that all the reinterpretations were based on, is also part of the collection of LIMA. So that's also keeping the collection alive or actualized or questioned, because it's not only a one-to-one translation of the work, it's also picking out one element and thinking, this is an element of the work from the 70s that is so actual nowadays, or maybe even I want to critique it. There was also Karen Sitter adding a female performer to a work that was male performer only, so there was a sort of feminist critique. So I think also this goes it goes together.
And it's not, in this case it was a performance, but the previous one we did was with Joost Rekweld, and it was very much about technology. So it's not only revisiting or reactivating the work, but it's also looking at the context, the equipment used, the pioneers at the time, and yeah, I think it's very contained, and it informs us about a lot. And it would be really funny to look back to the registration we made in 10 years and see what happened with this documentation and how it was perceived.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because in the documentation of the work of Emil Ziel reenacting Dan Graham, he also looks back into, or he looks into the future, what his performance is gonna be. So we're gonna go meta, I think.
I think, and then afterwards we have a chat, or?
Yeah, I think for now, just to illustrate all we have been talking of, I would say play the clip.
I'm rocking back and forwards on my hip. My right hip is carrying most of the weight. I'm rocking back and forwards, right to left, forward and back slightly, only so slightly. I'm kind of tapping my left foot like I'm pumping up a tiny mattress or a small pet inflatable kind of mattress Lilo thing. I'm feeling a sense of attention. I feel like you're paying attention. You're looking at me right now. I'm feeling some kind of neurochemical releases in my brain, some endorphins, some kind of anticipatory stresses that are releasing some kind of pleasure and fight or flight responses in my brain right now. I'm going to change the posture, kind of moving away, getting that energy released on the right-hand side. I'm going to flip over and continue this slow tapping of the inflatable, invisible mattress. I'm feeling a kind of sweat, like a slight sweat response from my glands. It's kind of warm in here, and I'm feeling that. I'm having some bodily reactions to being here in front of you. You are the audience, and I am the performer right now. We have many lenses amongst us. I'm feeling the UHF frequencies from this lav mic move through my buttock, through my hip, going out to the bio box. I'm sensing the kind of ultra high frequencies moving through skin tissue, body tissue, hairs, gene, all these textures and meaty, fleshy things. I can feel the updates, the background refreshers going from my phone in my right pocket through my body to a Vodafone base station somewhere. I'm feeling the Uber push notification move through my hip and return again, asking me to give a 5-star rating. I'm now closing my eyes a bit, kind of rocking back and forwards again, feeling quite comfortable. I've heard some tremors in the audience that make me feel a bit more comfortable, some kind of appreciative small laughs, which go a long way to make me feel content up here. I'm looking out onto the audience. I'm seeing lots of faces looking at me. I see some faces I recognize and some I don't. I am witnessing people as a kind of half distinct and then half kind of blurry effect. There are some people using their hand to support their face and to blind themselves from that light in the top right-hand corner. People are using a combination of forefinger and maybe second finger to support themselves, and they're leaning against these new couch seats which have been installed recently, and I hope you're enjoying them very much.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful documentation of an interesting piece. And for you watching at home, if you don't know the work by Dan Graham, the original where it's based on, so to say, I would highly encourage you to check it out. We have our entire distribution collection online on the website of Lima. We have a catalog, so you can watch it. And it's interesting, actually, because then it would be the other way around, that like a contemporary work sparks interest for the original, when in the case of Emile, it was the other way around. He found the work by Dan Graham in the catalog of Lima, and he was so inspired and thrilled that he wanted to make a contemporary performance based on the work. And I think, Javi, that's the best we can hope for at Lima, isn't it? That like past and present like continuously feed each other.
Yeah, and I think this is a really perfect example, and also a nice one to close this this tour. And yeah, thanks to all the artists and their wonderful works, and all the guys and girls that made all these registrations, all the curators, and so on and so on. And thank you for hosting.
Yeah, thank you, Gabi, for giving insight in this rich history. And next week at Lima Online, we have Emile Ziel with us live from Australia. So he's going to do it in the middle of the night. So bear with him and be there. And for now, I only want to thank Gabi deeply, and hope to see all of you back tomorrow when I talk to Ari Altena and Florian Wagel of V2, another institute that is part of this series. So have a good evening and see you soon. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.